Welcome to the Israel Insider Weekly Podcast, where we talk about the news in Israel with Ron Cantor, president of Shelanu TV and Israel Regional Director for God TV. I'm Lisa Hutchison. Thanks for joining us today. Ron, this week is one of my favorite holidays in the Jewish calendar. It is Sukkot. So will you share with our listeners about Sukkot and how it is in Israel?
Absolutely. The Feast of Tabernacles, as many people know it, Sukkot in Hebrew, Sukkot, or a sukkah, which is singular, it means a booth, a temporary dwelling. In fact, the tabernacle was called the Mishkan, which was a temporary dwelling. And it's interesting, in John chapter 1, verse 14, it says the word, Yeshua, became flesh, and it would be that same word, Mishkan, as a verb. He dwelt with us. He tabernacled with us. So for him, his earthly body was a temporary dwelling, but it's connected to Sukkot. It's why a lot of people believe that he was born during Sukkot, not during the what we would typically know as the Christmas season. Mm-hmm. So in Israel, this has to be the most exciting time of the year, the most joyous time of the year. It is just a festival in every aspect. Yeah. It is funny. We work with a lot of different ministries, and we did a video on Yom Kippur a few weeks ago, and I noticed that one of them wrote, and again, it's nothing against them, they're not Jewish, they didn't grow up, but it said, celebrate Yom Kippur. Well, you don't celebrate Yom Kippur, and you don't celebrate Rosh Hashanah. Those are times of judgment, of introspection, of nervousness for the Jewish people. Will God accept the Yom Kippur sacrifice? It's days of repentance, we call them, but Sukkot is a time for rejoicing. We're alive. We made it through those days of judgment, and now it's an agricultural harvest festival. But it's so much more than that, and there's so much prophetic going on in this feast. I would just encourage people to go to roncantor.com and hit blog. We just released a video. I did a 30-minute teaching, and I cannot believe, Lisa, that I packed, it had to have been at least 2 hours of teaching into 30 minutes because our dear producer, Trevor, told me I only had 30 minutes on the channel, but it was good. It was good discipline. But there's just so much. I'll just tell you a couple things that happened during Sukkot in antiquity. There's something called the water libation ceremony. A libation would be a drink offering or a water offering. And the reason that you would have this is because Sukkot is a time that you're praying for rain. Why? You know, I grew up in America, and it can rain at any moment. It could rain in December, it can rain in June. Israel is not like that. The Middle East is not like that. You are so dependent on the winter rains. And it's something I learned very early when I moved to Israel. It actually took me a few years. Whenever it starts raining in Israel, in October begins the rainy season. So it could be 80 degrees outside, and suddenly you get the first rain, and Israelis start going, oh, winter's here. And I would argue with my Israeli friends and say, no, this is not winter. You don't know winter. This is mere wetness. You know, this is, and it took me a few years, but the joke was on me, because for Israelis, winter means rain. And the Bible speaks about these winter rains, the former rains and the latter rains. And so the former rains would be these October, November rains. And so the Feast of Tabernacles comes typically at the beginning of October. This year, it's at the end of September. And you're praying for rain. So this water libation ceremony, what they would do is the priest would go down into the city of David. And if you've ever been to Jerusalem, you know that to get to the city of David, it's a steep drop. Right. You're going downhill, and then you find the pool of Siloam. And at this pool, which is just a beautiful area, if you ever get a chance to go through Hezekiah's tunnel, pitch black darkness for a few hundred meters, you get to the end, and there's the pool of Siloam. Have you done that?
I have. That's a really that's a wild ride doing that. I mean, you're walking, you're not riding, but that's a wild adventure. Everybody should do it for sure.
Yes, it's pitch dark. Now, people put their iPhones in Ziplocs, and so you can see where you're going. The acoustics are amazing. We have great worship there, but it was made during the time of Hezekiah when they were about to be attacked by, I believe it was the Assyrians, and they had to protect their water supply. And the only way to do that was to create a tunnel through bedrock with no time. Yeah. And I won't go into all that, but now you can walk through that tunnel in knee-deep water, and it's amazing. But you come out, and you're at the pool of Siloam, and that's where the priests would draw the water up. They would go up to the temple, and then around the altar, they would pour out the water. On the altar, there would be all kinds of branches from the 4 different trees that the Lord prescribes in Leviticus 23. I know there's the willow, the palm, and a couple more. And then afterwards, there would be just tremendous rejoicing and celebration. And of course, it was during the last and great day of the feast that Yeshua in John chapter 7, he understands that there has been this water libation ceremony because he's Jewish and he is in the old city for the very reason of celebrating this holiday. Yeah. But it's during that time that he announces that he is the Messiah. And if I sound like I am wasting a little time here, it's because I'm looking for the verse. I don't want to get it wrong. Just one second. Here we go. All right. So again, they would do this every day, but on the last day, and this was the great salvation day. It was the greatest day of the festival. The last day was called the Great Salvation, Yehoshana Rabbah, which means great salvation. It says, on this day, the last and greatest day of the festival, Yeshua stood and said in a loud voice, now again, just imagine this, there's, up in the Galilees, folks have figured out, there's this guy, he's a rabbi, he does some pretty cool stuff. But now he's in Jerusalem and he lifts up his voice. And he says, let anyone who is thirsty come to me and drink. Whoever believes in me, as Scripture has said, rivers of living water will flow from within them. So as they're praying for rain and they're pouring out this precious water on the altar, he's saying, I am the source of living water that's going to come from your belly. And, what's interesting is 2 chapters later, folks don't realize that this is the same day. It's chapter 8, chapter 9, maybe it's a year. No, it's the same day. And he says, rivers of living water is going to flow out of your belly. Then he finds this blind man and he spits on the ground and he creates mud with, again, I don't want to be gross here, but his spittle is literally rivers of water coming from him, the Savior, from his belly, and it gives light to the blind. Now, why is light significant? Well, if we go to chapter 8, we're reminded of another great festival that we're not sure if it was just on the first night or if it was every night, but there would be this festival of illumination where they would have these 85-foot candelabras. Wow. And they would light them up, and the light was so bright it would light up the entire city of Jerusalem. At nighttime, the men would dance and they would sing. It was there's an old proverb. It's in the Mishnah, which is the authoritative interpretation, or rather the authoritative, the oral law, the traditions of the elders. And for Jewish people, this is like equal to Scripture. And there's a proverb in there that says that if you have not witnessed the joy of this celebration, then you have not witnessed joy in your lifetime. So, it's very easy to read sometimes the New Testament and get an image of the Jewish people at the time, that were just a bunch of hypocrites, like, some of the Pharisees. But there's some and many that were just hungering after Messiah to come. Yeah. They were hungering and desiring this. And they loved the fact that they were God's people, and they took joy in that. So they would dance and they would rejoice. And so then Yeshua says, and this is in John chapter 8, verse 12, when Yeshua spoke again to the people, again, same day, he said, I am the light of the world. Now, again, he is, if you don't know the background of this great festival of illumination, you don't understand what he's saying. He said, you think this light is great? 80 foot, 5 foot high. It's amazing, right? Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life. So then in chapter 9, the water from within him gives light to the blind man. So, there's so much we could share about the Feast of Tabernacles, the building of the Sukkot. We live in the booths for 7 days to remind us of our time in the wilderness. It's a great illustration to your children. Go to our website, roncantor.com, hit the blog button, and watch the video. I know you're going to be blessed. So again, I could spend a long time talking about that, but I won't, because we've got some other news, don't we?
Yes, we do. But right after this.
Have you heard of Shelanu TV? It's the only 24/7 Hebrew language gospel channel, and we are reaching tens of thousands of Israelis. Learn more at shelanutv.net. That's shelanutv.net.
This week, I think one of the biggest stories that we both noticed was our dear friend, AOC. And she just caused a little stir, her and her little squad here in the States, actually. But it impacted Israel, at least temporarily. Will you share with us, give us a little illumination on that?
Yes. So in America, the Democrats, I should say the government is trying to stay open. The Democrats are trying to pass a bill to keep it open, and Biden is trying to pass a bill to fund not just the government, but all kinds of projects. And we won't make comment on that, other than to say that Nancy Pelosi, in an effort to try and lure some Republicans to voting yay, she added $1 billion to fund the Iron Dome in Israel. And of course, Israel, the Iron Dome is a near miraculous invention in Israel. I think I've shared, on this, that one of the reasons Israelis tend to invent stuff at a much higher level than the other nations is because of the training in the IDF. If you ever read the book Startup Nation, the whole premise is that Israel has more startups per capita because when we are in the Army, and I say we, I actually never did the IDF because I was 38 when I moved to Israel, and they did not want me, which was, it hurt a little
shocking.
bit. It's shocking. Yeah, they don't know what they missed. Israelis are taught never to give up. And the fellow who, if you ever read the testimony of the guy who created the Iron Dome, he had so many reasons to give up, but he would not, and he did not. And now it's protecting Israelis. And of course, the U.S. helps to fund it. They're, very expensive. I think each Iron Dome missile is $50,000, if not more. So Nancy Pelosi, hoping to get some pro-Israel Republicans, she added this. It didn't work. Not only did she not get any Republicans because they're looking to, for a big fail for President Biden, but several of her precious Democrats they said, if this money is in there, we're not going to vote. So that's AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, Jamal Bowman, and Cori Bush, and a few other non-squad members, but progressive, Betty McCollum and Pramila, I can't even say her last name, Jayapal?
Jayapal, there you go.
Look at that.
Ta-da.
So folks never would have known I was reading, if not for that one last. Anyways, the squad plus two, which I think is 7 votes, said that they were not going to vote for it, and that would effectively crush the bill because they only have an 8-seat majority. That means if 4 don't vote for the bill and then they vote against the bill, then it becomes a tie. If 5 don't vote for it, then they lose. And they had 7 that weren't going to vote for it. So this caused quite a bit of concern in Israel, in the news. It was all over the news. What does this mean? And let me just say a couple things. Number one, it looks like AOC is here to stay. She's not going, and I do not like her politics at all. I do respect the fact that she's unafraid. I mean, she's absolutely unafraid, and does not really care what people think about her. So I can respect that part of her. I do not respect her politics at all. I think she's out of her mind. And I think when she grows up, and I don't mean that to be disrespectful, but I am 56. I think when she grows up that she's going to realize that socialism just doesn't work. It certainly doesn't work in the far left end of it. If you look at the former Soviet Union and countries like that, there are other countries that are, socialist light, that are getting along, but there is no economy like America. The free market system, in my opinion, is the best in the world. And so one day maybe she'll figure that out. I don't know. Right now, she is enjoying the benefits of the free market system, going to the Met Gala. And here's the problem. Can I just get on my soapbox for a minute? And this is what she's got to watch. If she wants to be for real, here's why I don't respect her. I would have far more respect for her if she lived a simple life. If she said, you know what, I'm a socialist, everything needs to be equal. I'm not gonna take the full, 100,000 plus salary that I'm gonna take less money. I'm gonna give the rest away. In other words, live a simple life. Show me that you're serious. But now I see her at the Metropolitan Museum in her tax the rich dress, which does not make it okay for you to be there. That's for rich and famous people. And this is the problem, Lisa, with socialism, is it's great for the simple people. But the people who are advocating it, who are demanding it, they tend to, look at Bernie Sanders. Most people look at Bernie who don't know him and think, he's for real. He's the real deal. You may not agree with him, but he is a millionaire. He's not a socialist. He has taken advantage of the free market system of capitalism. And if you want me to even consider socialism, then live like a socialist. All right? Still, I'm not going to tolerate it, but at least don't be a hypocrite. So I'm going to get off my soapbox now. And they made their stand. And the thing that really concerned people is that these folks, they're getting stronger. We were told a few years ago, you don't have to worry about them. There are a few loony folks on the left. Well, you know what? The few loony folks are now controlling the vote. And that's the power of being in the either the far right of the Democratic Party, like Joe Manchin, or the far left, like Joe Manchin. He's the most powerful Democrat in the Senate. Why? Because he's conservative, and because he's a conservative Democrat, and they only have 50 seats, they can't pass any legislation without him on board. Well, now that they've only, when they had 227 or 230 seats, they could laugh at AOC and say, "Oh, it's so silly," but now it's serious. Now, here's the good news, Lisa, is apparently in the House of Representatives today, they just decided, you know what, we're going to vote on the Iron Dome and send a message to Israel that we are for her, that we're still pro-Israel. And they actually voted for the $1 billion to the Iron Dome today. And it passed 420 to 9.
Wow.
So thank God for the Republicans and thank God for all the Democrats who voted for it. I don't know who the 9 were, but I'm going to guess they were probably Democrats. But our dear, sweet AOC voted present instead of voting against it like the rest of the squad. Now, we expected that from Rashida Tlaib and Omar, Ilhan Omar, who are anti-Semitic in my opinion, and anti-American in my opinion. But she voted present. And I think the reason she did that is I don't think she's an anti-Semite. I do not think that AOC hates Jewish people. I do think that the other two are very conflicted in regards to how they see the Jewish people in the state of Israel. But I think she is really just committed to socialism, even though she's a hypocrite in the fact that she's not living like a true believer. But I don't think she's an anti-Semite. I do think she's anti-Israel, but she's anti-Israel because she sees Israel as a little America, capitalistic, prospering, doing great. And now we got oil, or natural gas, so we're doing even better. And she looks at the nations around us, particularly the Arabs in Gaza and the West Bank. And this is what they don't do, is they don't look at the whole situation. They just see the fantastic headlines. And they don't understand that if there was a Palestinian leadership that wanted peace, we'd have peace right now. And it would not just be peace, it would be cooperation. In fact, during the 90s, after the Oslo Accords, before the second wave of terrorism, there was great cooperation between Israelis and Palestinians. It really was working. And then they started blowing us up again. And then it didn't work. So whenever they actually want peace, just give us a call. We're ready. But the fact of the matter is that, AOC, she is not interested in hearing that. They're just, committed to their socialist agenda. And having said that, as you know, Lisa, I am on a short vacation. We work really, really hard, and we're away for we're really just overnight. And so I'm going to cut this a little short today, go spend some time with my lovely wife. And
well, you guys have a great time, and we'll let that wrap it up for this episode.
We will have a good time, and let me just wish everybody all around the world who listens a happy Sukkot, a happy Feast of Tabernacles. And if you're saying, wait a minute, I'm not Jewish, well, in the millennium, according to Zechariah 14:16, I'll let you go look that up, you will be celebrating the Feast of Tabernacles. That's Zechariah 14:16.
Nice. I look forward to it. It's my favorite holiday, really, of the Jewish calendar.
If you're enjoying the Israeli Insider podcast, then make sure to sign up for Ron's emails from Israel, full of news, teaching, and his new series, 52 Stories of Life in Israel, sent out every Sunday. Just go to roncantor.com to sign up.
For those who are listening, thanks for listening, and be sure to follow us find us on Facebook and follow us there, and sign up for the daily email to get the inside scoop on happenings in the Holy Land. Thanks again for being with us this week, and we will see you next week.